Shalom, miserable humans. We have finally come to the fan favorite season and the last Winx season that was actually good, Season 3. This season was an example of continuing to take things up a notch. Season 2 did that following the first season, and Season 3 continued that trend. But you didn't come here to hear me praise Season 3, you came to hear my casting choices. First, I need to make a few things perfectly clear. First of all, Radius will not be included in this video because I already covered his casting in my recast of Season 1, so don't go telling me that I forgot him. Secondly, I will also be including the characters from the first movie, Secret of the Lost Kingdom. That movie is supposed to be the conclusion to the first 3 seasons, and there aren't really that many new characters in the movie. Thirdly, and most importantly, Nabu should not have been killed off, and if I were doing a reboot of the show, I would never let that happen. Anyway, without any further delay, let's dive right on in. Starting off with the best specialist and our favorite sorcerer of Winx Club, Nabu. As I've mentioned before, representation is important, so it was important to cast someone who matched Nabu's race, which is that of an Indian. No, I don't mean Native Americans. I mean Indian as in South Asian people from India. Educate yourselves, humans, and don't call Native Americans Indians. Anyway, finding an actor for him was very difficult since there aren't really any voice actors who are Indian/South Asian. I ultimately went with Unicorn Awards choice, Sandhill Murphy. I looked up some of his work, and while he doesn't do much voice acting, he's actually very ranged and can sound different from his regular voice. I think the voice he uses for the show Cleopatra in Space would suit Nabu. He's very easygoing but also mature, and while the character he plays in that show is very uptight, he would be able to pull it off. Plus, the accent would really be perfect for him.
Cleopatra, you have been transported into the future. You are the savior of the galaxy.
Next up, we have a fan-favorite villain, the second most popular after the tricks, Valtor. I was tempted to go with his 4Kids voice since he's definitely the best voice Valtor has ever had. However, I actually thought of someone who would actually be even better. That person is Keith David. You'll recognize him for his performance as Goliath and Thalog from Gargoyles, King Andreas from Amphibia, and Dr. Facilier from The Princess and the Frog, just to name a few. His voice is raspy yet smooth at the same time. It's hard to describe, but he would just nail Valtor's suave demeanor, be intimidating and threatening, and also pull off his more monstrous moments.
The Guardians will be wise to step aside. A new order to the universe is coming. One that will be written in fire, and with the blood of all who oppose me. You will be wise to join me. The only will that matters is mine, the one true voice of the flame of Pyros. Such was bestowed upon me in the time of before.
As for Chimera, this will be quick because she will be keeping her Nick voice, Rachel McFarlane. As much as I did love her 4Kids voice and how it portrayed her as the ultimate brat.
Why are those curtains open? You, get to work on this hair. And you, I want my skin more radiant than the sun. Is that clear? I need to be the prettiest in the whole kingdom.
I feel like Rachel takes that and gives her more of a mature and sinister quality, which really ups the character as more than just a minor obstacle.
Who's responsible for the curtains? I need my beauty rest. The next time something like this happens, I won't be so nice. Do you understand? And this is just the beginning.
As for Countess Cassandra, just like her daughter, she will be keeping her Nick voice, Kath Susie. I mean, let's be real, Kath is a voice acting legend and really gives Cassandra a lot of class and sophistication, while also showing her as being manipulative, ruthless, and sinister.
Radius, this monster is not your daughter. Listen and obey. This monster is not your daughter. Now do as I say. Oh, you too, darling. And we're only just getting started.
Plus, it reminds me a lot of her performance as Nerissa from Witch.
Who needs Earth? Every world has a mystic heart, but this world comes without guardians.
Now we move on to the Residents of Andros, starting off with the king and Layla's father, Terrandor. I just had to go with Philemar, who is an absolute voice acting legend, one of the kings of the voice acting world. Just Google his work and you'll see that he was a major part of your childhood. Just perfection.
Our city was heavily damaged, and many Atlanteans were injured. but it could have been far worse.
For Layla's mother, Queen Niobe, I went with Anika Noni Rose, who is best known for being the voice of Tiana from The Princess and the Frog. Her voice has such a loving warmth to it, can be stubborn, strong, emotional, elegant, and just amazing in general. Truly underrated.
Oh, Lottie, that's swell. A little word of advice. My mama always said the quickest way to a man's heart is through his stomach.
For the Mermaid Princess, Tressa, as much as I loved Laura Bailey's performance from the Nick dub, I really had to go with Kelly Sheridan. You will recognize her from roles such as Wanda/Scarlet Witch from X-Men Evolution, Starlight Glimmer from My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, and of course as Barbie in the Barbie movies. Her performance in the Barbie movies show how she can play characters who are unsure of themselves but later become braver. Not to mention, I would love to see how she flawlessly handles Tressa's more courageous and active role that she has in season 5.
Wait! Please. You have the wrong girl. I can't be the one. I haven't overcome anybody in my life. I wish I could help, but I...
For the Mermaid Queen, Ligeia, I went with Nicole Oliver, who you will recognize as Princess Princess Celestia from My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Her voice as Celestia is just perfect for the character and really matches with the design.
I told you that you needed to make some friends. Nothing more. I saw the signs of Nightmare Moon's return, and I knew it was you who had the magic inside to defeat her. But you could not unleash it until you let true friendship into your heart.
For Tabok the Wise, I went with Cara Lumby, who you will recognize as Martian Manhunter from Justice League. Do I really need to say anything else? That voice would just flawlessly capture the character.
Nice and cozy. How odd to hear you speak that way. I've never seen this side of you, Clark.
As for Nabu's parents, they have very few lines, but I still want to cast Indian actors. For his father, I'll just go with Sanhil Ramamurthy to do his voice and maybe do his Ra's al Ghul voice from DC's Superhero Girls, only not so evil and sinister.
Of course I know your name, Carla Danvers. I'm very much aware that you are a super fan.
As for Nabu's mother, this was difficult, but I went with Artie Mann, who you will recognize from that absolute mess of a show, The Big Bang Theory, where she played Raj's sister, Priya. I think she'd be good, though I must ask, why must you humans have such a lack of diversity in your media?
I have a one-day layover on my way to Toronto.
Now we move on to the 2 new students of Alfea, starting with the Princess of Melody, Galatea. I wanted to make sure that the voice actress was Asian because, well, look at her father, ignore the blonde hair, and just look at her eyes, she's Asian. So her having a Scottish accent in the Cinema dub makes no sense, much like most of the voices in that dub.
You may remain standing. My sound sphere will be knocking you down.
Anyway, I went with Jennifer Paz, who you will recognize from Steven Universe as Lapis. Her voice is light and feminine, but can also be strong and tough, which would suit the prim and proper Galatea, who is a little too reckless for her own good.
You actually talked to me. You helped me. It's Steven, right?
And while Galatea doesn't sing despite being the Princess of Melody, if I were directing this, I would have her doing some singing while she's playing her instruments when her and Musa meet, especially since Jennifer Paz has a lovely voice.
And I see the colors fading, gentleness of light escaping, shadows of my fear invading. Have I seen this all before?
And for Nova, I went with Olivia Hack, who you will recognize as the voice of Rhonda from Hey Arnold, Chloe from Bratz, and Ty Lee from Avatar The Last Airbender. Nova loves some good gossip like Rhonda and has similarities to Chloe and even Ty Lee, and the voice just really suits her design. Probably because the actress actually does look like her.
Okay, look. If you want a boy to like you, just look at him and smile a lot and laugh at everything he says, even if it's not funny.
Now we've come to the Residents of Pyros, starting with Bloom's inner dragon, Buddy. For him, I went with Tara Strong. She's not only a master of baby voices, but also doing the voices of little boys. You've heard her work as Dill Pickles from All Grown Up, Ben Tennyson from Ben 10, and Timmy Turner from The Fairly Odd Parents, just to name a few. Just imagine her little boy voice coming out of this adorable little dragon.
Look, if I can figure this thing out, maybe I can help people. Really help them. Not just, make things worse.
As for Maya, I chose Estelle, who you will recognize as the voice of Garnet from Steven Universe. Maya is a very wise and mysterious character that serves as a mentor for Bloom, similar to Garnet. She's just perfect for the role. I mean, just listen to this.
I have weaknesses too, but I choose not to let them consume me. I struggle to stay strong because I know the impact I have on everyone.
Now we move on to the Residents of Linphea, starting with Flora's little sister, Mile. While I did love Jessica DeChico's performance, she's not Hispanic or Latina, so that kept her from qualifying. Ultimately, I decided to go with Sarah Nicole Robles, who you will recognize as the voice of Luz Noceda from The Owl House. She would really be able to pull off her sweet and adventurous nature. Plus, I think she would be able to do a higher-pitched voice for little girl Mile.
Maybe I can befriend her like Azura befriended her rival.
But use her regular voice for Mile in later seasons when she's older.
I know it's kind of cliche, but what's wrong with cliche?
As for the Sage of Linphea, I'm gonna have to agree with Unicorn Awards choice, Mary Elizabeth McGlynn. She would be able to give her an enchanting and kind of haunting performance, like the performance I've heard of her as Queen Metalia from Sailor Moon, only, you know, not evil.
Ridiculous. Sailor Moon is inside me. She belongs to the darkness now.
Now we move on to the Council of Elders, starting with the leader and the first fairy ever, Arcadia. This was an easy choice because I'm going with Cree Summer, who is definitely a staple of your childhood. I think her performance as Kita from Atlantis, the Lost Empire, with an echo effect would really suit this mysterious deity. I mean, just listen to this.
We are not thriving. True, our people live, but our culture is dying. We are like a stone the ocean beats against. With each passing year, a little more of us is worn away.
As for the Pegatar, he will be keeping his 4Kids voice, Dan Green, who I cast as Sky. People who are familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh! Are obviously aware of just how versatile Dan is, since for the Pegatar he used his Pharaoh voice while he used his Yugi voice for Sky.
You have proven that you care more about the world than you do about yourselves.
For the mermaid, I went with Kelly Sheridan, who is actually surprisingly versatile because I heard her do a narration for a trailer for a video game, which really suits the design of this character. I mean, just listen.
This winter, the fate of the world is in your hands.
And for the flying creature, yes, that's what he's actually called on the wiki page, I went with Keith Ferguson, who I also cast as the voice of Brandon. He is a very versatile actor and can play a character that is more mysterious and serious very well.
Who are you? Just another stray being played with by the gods. No matter. Choose the path you wish to take. All paths lead to the same end anyway.
Now we move on to other characters that didn't fit into a category box, starting with the ice spirits guarding the Mirror of Truth. I went back to his Nick voice, Jim Cummings. He's a voice acting legend and his performance was just flawless.
You must seek the mirror of truth. You will find it as soon as you find yourself, and it will break the spell only if you touch its heart.
As for the goblin, or elf, or whatever that guides the girls to the Council of Elders, I went with Rob Paulson, who can do very comedic characters very well, such as his performance as Yakko Warner from Animaniacs and its reboot.
All human knowledge in one easy-to-swallow tablet? Don't mind if I do.
As for Chimera's friends that were only in the first episode of Season 3, who I'm calling Beta Girl 1 and Beta Girl 2, I decided to go with Candy Milo as Beta Girl 1, using her Irma voice from Witch,
Amen. Never broadcast desperate.
and Tara Strong using her Andrina voice from that terrible movie The Little Mermaid 3 Ariel's Beginning for Beta Girl 2.
Don't look now, but dinner exploded on your face.
And now we have come to the movie characters section, starting with the ancestral witches Belladonna, Listless, and Tharma. But let's be honest here, these three have always been treated like a single entity rather than three separate characters. So to give them more characterization, I'm basing the casting on voice actresses that can match as older versions of each of their respective descendants. Belladonna for Icy, Listless for Darcy, and Tharma for Stormy. Starting off with the ruthless leader of the trio, Belladonna. I would have to go back to her Nick voice, Grey Delisle. She just does an incredible job and is truly such a versatile actress. I can see this as an older version of Lisa Ortiz's Icy.
Bloom, you managed to find us despite all the obstacles we put in your path. Now what do you want to know? It isn't true that the king and queen of Domino are prisoners inside Valtor's body. And you fell into his trap. They're outside of this realm, in a dimension far, far away. Slow down, Fairy. Do you really think it's that simple?
For Listless, I would have to go with voice acting legend Tress MacNeille, who, like many voice actors I've mentioned in these videos, is an absolute staple of your childhood. Her performance as the bloodbending Hama from Avatar: The Last Airbender would be perfect for this character. I mean, do I really need to say more?
They threw me in prison to rot, along with my brothers and sisters. They deserve the same. You must carry on my work.
For the third and final witch, Tharma, I went with Cree Summer. Like many voice actors I've mentioned, her voice acting abilities are incredibly versatile. Her performance as Hagar from Voltron Legendary Defender would be absolutely perfect for the character, especially since, like her descendant, raspy voices really suit her.
I know many ideas float through your head, just like your father. But the Galra Empire needs your leadership in these troubling times.
Not to mention that all three of these women are incredible at evil laughs, especially Tress MacNeille. And here's an edit I did of all three laughing together. As for the mysterious old warrior, Hagen, I have to agree with Unicorn War's choice, James Garrett. For those of you who don't know, he voiced Avatar Roku from Avatar: The Last Airbender. I mean, that's just chef's kiss. Chef's kiss. Perfection.
If you are killed in the Avatar state, the reincarnation cycle will be broken, and the Avatar will cease to exist.
Now we come to Mandragora. As Unicorn War pointed out, she's supposed to be an imposing villain but comes off as an absolute joke because of the English dubs, making her ridiculously over the top in both the Dubbing Brothers dub,
Bestow upon your humble servant the power of dark energy, and I'll leave this cold prison of the Obsidian Circle.
and the Nickelodeon dub, which was better but still terrible.
If you transfer the power of dark energy to me, I will leave this cold prison of the Obsidian Circle.
And continuing with being a poor man's version of Unicorn of War, I do agree that the best choice for Mandragora is Wendy Malick. Her best known voice acting roles are as Chicha from the Emperor's New Groove franchise, Beautiful Gorgeous from Jimmy Neutron, Birdine Maxwell from Bratz, and of course, Ida the Owl Lady from The Owl House. Wendy has an amazing talent for taking characters that can seem bland on paper like with Birdine, but make them theatrical and entertaining while also not making the character become a laughingstock. And in the case of villains, she also is able to portray Sinister very well, so she is exactly the actress that Mandragora needs.
Maybe it is the curse, but then how pathetic are you that you can't best me at my worst? You've always looked down on me because I'm wild, but fortunately, that just made me work harder than you.
For Lord Bartleby, the keeper of the Book of Fate, I can think of no one better than Timothy Dalton. He was the voice of Lord Demantis from Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure. I mean, just listen to this and tell me you wouldn't want to hear an audiobook narrated by him.
Millennia ago, a mysterious event in the heavens divided an ancient power in two. The sun drop and moonstone fell to the earth. 3 of my pupils and I researched the legend of the sun drop and moonstone. 2 elements that long to reunite.
And lastly, we have Sky's Guard Lady, or whatever she's supposed to be. I'm just gonna have Tara Strong do her voice.
And now, before yet another century passes, is the time to re-engage ourselves with the old world.
And that was my recast for Season 3 and the first movie. I had a lot of fun making this. However, I'm gonna step away from Winx Club for a bit so I can focus on making my video about what I want to see in the live-action remake of The Swan Princess. After I do that, I will do recastings for Seasons 4 through 6, then do a non-Winx Club video again, and then do Seasons 7 and 8, and then do, well, anything else I can think of. And I hope you guys will watch and comment on all of them because I really love getting comments from all of you. Anyway, what did you guys think of my recast? Which casting choice or choices were your favorite? What are your casting choices? Let me know in the comments. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm the Wicked Merman from Under the Sea.